The thing with AI, though, is it's incredibly hard to judge, right? Because you think about, like, ChatGPT was launched in November 2022, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah.
So we're only 3 and a bit years
we're
in.
We're the same distance in.
Hmm.
If you go another 3.5 years into the future, that's when Dan Schulman thinks that we're looking at 30% unemployment. What's happened with ChatGPT so far is there's no evidence it's led to any increase in unemployment at all so far. If you look at the US unemployment data, which I did from my story, which they were saying was poorly researched, it's actually at an all-time low, more or less, at the moment.
Well,
it's a 20-year low.
But if you look at it a different way and go, what are the capabilities? I'm not necessarily saying what's happening on the employment market is necessarily true. We could get into that, but let's not. But it's more the capabilities of AI in 3.5 years' time. It's gone from, I can have a plausible conversation 3.5 years ago to, I don't know, did you see all the stuff around mythos?
Yeah.
Now that is concerning.
Hello and welcome to another Telecoms.com podcast. My back's a little bit better this week, but it's still far from fucking perfect. I don't mind telling you. But
you said the F word 14 seconds in. Come on.
So I met Ian.
Why do you call it the F word when I've already unclosed it?
I aggravate.
I met Ian Ginn this week.
Oh, right.
And I've been listening to the podcast recently. I'm really pleased that Scott's not swearing as much as he just completely
How'd you like them apples, Ian? Yes. Well, as you know, Ian, all I look for is your approval.
He'll hear this because he'll be listening to this one after future now.
I don't know which ones he's been listening to. Perhaps it was the ones at the start of the year where we weren't drinking. But I think I remember us remarking that I was still quite sweary then.
Yeah, I wasn't going to tell you because I knew it would prompt you to just start swearing.
Yeah, well done.
Like a docker. Okay, well, anyway, I'm sure. I hope, like to think, Ian, you're enjoying it for other reasons as well, not just my relative lack of swearing. We, before I go any further, we got a special guest this week. We worked out, I think it's our 4th Irishman of the year, Frank Long from Cambridge Consultants. Welcome, Frank.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, now that we've got so many Irish people on, we might as well just switch to the Father Ted version, Fex.
Shall I just say feck?
Feck and chite.
Well, because, I mean...
Little bollock.
Is feck actually a word that's an island?
Oh, yeah.
They didn't just invent it for Father Ted?
No. That was very
And cool. Is it used as it is in Father Ted, the sort of softer version of fuck?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's so arbitrary, isn't it? Yeah. Put an E in, it's all right. It's not really swearing at all.
Nope.
But put a U in, ooh. Anyway. So great to, and you're not just Irish, you're from the same town as last week's guest, which is Cork. You even knew how Owen's surname is pronounced in a Corky way.
Yes, Colin.
Yeah.
Have we got someone on from Cork next week as well?
No, I don't think we've got anyone lined up for next week. Actually.
Who's the most famous person from Cork?
Well, at the moment, Roy Keane, that would be an interesting guest.
He would be an interesting guest.
Yeah.
Not sure he knows much about telecom, though. But.
I bet he doesn't mind a swear. He won't use feck.
From my hometown, Morgan McSweeney.
Oh, I was just
I
was just emailing a friend about that who's into politics.
Very, very good friend of one of his cousins. But maybe best avoided. Well, he's busy next week.
Yeah. Well, he's just one of the many people that's been thrown under the bus by Keir Starmer, which I'm finding very entertaining. Yeah. But anyway, this is not a politics podcast. I'm going to. I know you're on childcare duty after this, but I'm going to tempt you to a little bit of the redbreast because I know you keep some at home. And
very much.
I'm just going to corrupt you with a little bit of this. Not that you took much corrupting.
At least I've got evidence for the wife that I was forced into it.
That you were forced.
This is a Cork whiskey, isn't it? Did I get that wrong? Or?
Yeah.
Well, Frank was telling me that actually Jameson's, Redbreast, Middleton, it's all ultimately the same place, yeah?
Same company based down in Middleton in East Cork. So, all from Cork.
Yeah. So we had, when we were hanging out with Cohere in Dublin, we had Jameson Crested. That was nice. That's a slightly posher version of your regular Jameson. So there's this whole spectrum.
Yeah.
I've been to the Jameson distillery in Cork.
Yeah, I went there on my stag do.
Yeah.
And I got very, very drunk.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to go 0 to 60 pretty quickly in that environment, aren't you?
Yeah, they basically said, here, have a couple of shots and off down the road with you. And they were absolutely fine with me taking the glass with me for some reason.
Right.
Who knows? So I was walking out of the Jameson distillery still with a fine big glass of whiskey in my hand thinking, I hope the police aren't on the streets.
Right. They've probably got an arrangement with them. There's like a sort of area of about 100 yards radius around it where people can just stagger around being weird.
Yeah. I can highly recommend it though.
Yes, no, it sounds brilliant. So, so in a bit we'll get to know you a bit better, Frank, and what Cambridge Consultants does. In terms of opening bollocks, so Owen hung out with us for a bit after last week. That was great to chat to him in the pub. And do we think we can do it? So you went to an event this week, FutureNet World. Do you think we're going to do a whole segment on that?
Well, it's kind of linked to one of the topics that I think we're going to talk about with Frank.
Okay, all right.
Whole AI, autonomous networks.
Well, in that case, we'll just merge it into that.
FutureNet, which is now, by the way, in its 8th year.
Right. And it's moved to Docklands.
Yeah, it was at the Intercontinental near the O2. It's the hotel basically next to the O2 Arena.
That's right, yeah. So not quite the Excel, but
no, not the Excel. I mean, I don't think it's a great venue, to be honest with you.
It's redbreast from just my back.
It's a pain to get to.
I've had to provide feedback to the conference organisers, and I think at least one of them does listen to the podcast.
Right.
I would say...
Why did you put it in the middle of nowhere?
I would say the event's really good in terms of... It's got brilliant attendees. Like, you want telco execs, like from the CTO office, don't you, at these
No, they've got a great lineup of people.
They've got a really good lineup. I mean, maybe not the big North American carriers, but... all the kind of European guys are there, like CTOs and people just below that level. And all the presentation slots are sort of led by operators, it seems. There's very little of that.
So why don't you, even though it's going to come up again in subsequent conversation. Did you want any ice, by the way, Frank? I didn't offer.
No, I don't have ice in my whiskey. Thanks.
Not a bloody American.
I like to taste it.
Yeah. No, Owen didn't like ice with it either. I'm obviously being impure with my ice.
Yeah.
There we go. It's quite a nice day here,
in Texas,
by the way. It's one of the nicest days of the year so far in London.
The whole week?
Yeah. The whole week's been pretty nice, yeah. Why don't you just quickly, as an opening bollocks segment before we bring it up again, just say, are there any like really top-line highlights you took from attending it? Did you just go for one day?
No, I went for 2 days.
All right.
So the highlight, I would say it's quite small. I mean, relatively small, like a few hundred people. It's not one of these big sprawling thousands and thousands. And it's
so everything's happening in one or two rooms.
Yeah, but it's one of those events where you do bump into people and you just find. I mean, Scott Petty, who's Vodafone CTO.
Yep.
I just sort of like ran into him, and I ended up chatting to him for like 20 minutes about stuff, and it's quite good for doing that. Whereas, like, obviously MWC is a complete opposite end of the scale, but even events somewhere in the middle, it's quite hard. You have to sort of line up meetings. You can't just have those kind of casual.
Yeah, even something the size of DTW, there's less serendipitous bumping into people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think so. I think it's good for that, and I think it's well organised, and the topic's good. It's obviously like we're going to talk about it, but autonomous networks and AI in telecom and what difference it's going to make and how they implement it is a really good industry topic. But I think it's just me, like the whole sitting through presentations, and I don't know, maybe it's just when you get older you kind of feel like you've heard it all before, you know what I mean?
It really
too wise.
You want
it really tests my
I think as an analyst or a journalist, you want kind of hard data points, don't you? And you want someone to obviously tell you something new, but you find some of these panel sessions and presentations, they're just sort of going over the same old ground, and nobody really wants to upset anybody on stage anyway, so it's...
With some of these, I think, do you know what? I watch it at home on YouTube at twice speed.
Totally. So I think people go for the same reason as me. It's like you value the contact with guys that you meet on the exhibition floor, and you line up a couple of meetings and you get something out of them.
Or spot something over in the corner.
Or you might spot something, yeah. But I think sitting through these, hour after hour of we're going to have another session on can we get to level 4 autonomous networks and how do you do that, I think is a bit... I mean, some of the moderators do a really good job of trying to make it a bit.
Don't make it sound too boring, because that's one of the things Frank wants to talk about.
I'm not saying that's boring. I'm just saying when you have
it's a presentation.
when you have vendors and operators on stage and nobody really wants to upset the other one in front of an audience of a few hundred people, it can become a bit bland. And
I agree.
Mark Newman, I always think, does a very good job as a moderator.
A good moderator,
who used to work for. Used to work for Omdia, didn't he? Ovum as it was, but I think he does a good sort of trying to put people on the spot a bit and be a bit journalistic with his questions.
He is good.
You do get
I did the other way around at my World Congress. I moderated a panel that he was on.
Yeah,
but he was a good contributor from that side.
I wouldn't name people because that would be unfair. But you do get some of the moderators. You feel it's a bit like, so tell me what's your favourite kind of AI RAN?
Yeah.
And it's
a bit too accommodating, and it's not very conversational, and it's very sort of prescribed.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
I know the other problem with going out there was tube strikes. Obviously on Tuesday and Wednesday, I ended up having to get an Uber there on the Wednesday.
I think it's still going today, isn't it? The tube strike.
Yeah.
Got a bit nervous on the way in.
Right.
I was
Is that one of the reasons you were so early?
Possibly, yeah.
I walked past Frank. He arrived in the lobby downstairs, same time as me, and we sort of looked at each other, but neither of us had quite had the confidence to say that's definitely you. So I just breezed past him and got the lift up.
You're significantly bigger than the picture that I saw in the briefing. It's couldn't be him. He's more than an inch tall.
Yes. Okay. So, but on the whole, it's a good event, but more for the networking side.
I had a couple of really good briefings that I haven't even turned into any content yet.
Okay.
And I met a few people, like quite a lot of people I just bumped into, as I mentioned, Scott Petty being one of them, that you just do that, like, a few minutes chit chat. I saw Neil McRae there, actually.
Cool. Yeah, the first time you've seen him since he went to City Fibre.
Yes,
I think I might have seen him in passing in World Congress. But.
Yeah, so you just run into a lot of people that are quite prominent in the industry, and and it's good for that sort of thing. And also all our colleagues in the journalism world, obviously,
our little crew.
There. Yeah. So it was good.
All right,
gets you out of the house, doesn't it?
Indeed. Yeah, I would. I was definitely not going to go with my back this week.
You would have had your back to cope with tube strikes.
Yeah, and getting in from Hitchin.
And then death by PowerPoint. You'd have been in a very grumpy mood by the end of the day.
or I just would have been obnoxiously drunk.
Well, they didn't get the beers out till 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I reckon if I'd slept in, it would have been hip flask territory. I'd been sitting there like some manky tramp, furtively sipping from my hip flask while they were telling me about the RAN.
Yeah.
Okay.
For you.
All right, so that's my way of saying I've got nothing to add that I've been up to this week on the slow recuperation of a late middle-aged man with a dodgy back. Feeling my age, definitely. Before we go any further, I'm delighted to announce that this podcast has a sponsor. Unperturbed by our unorthodox style, Cohere Technologies has decided to take the plunge. For any listeners that missed our previous pods with its CEO, Cohere is the innovator behind Universal Spectrum Multiplier software for 4G and 5G and Pulsone technology for 5G and 6G coexistence, ISAC and NTN. Thanks a lot, Cohere. Your support is much appreciated. Right, so let's get on with it.
I don't like the way you're looking at a weird black and white photo of me on your computer screen.
It's not a weird photo. I took that.
Did you?
Yeah, don't you remember?
Oh, brilliant photo.
I think we took it in here. Because your previous one was from about 10 years ago.
Anyway, you know what I look like by now.
Yeah, I've got it because I click on your byline so that I can easily access shit you've written this week, such as stuff that might have annoyed certain operators, which we'll come to in a bit. But first, Frank, so why don't you start with telling us, Frank, what Cambridge Consultants, is it?
Consultants, yes, not Analytica. That happens all the time. Mm-hmm. Aren't you the guys with the Facebook? No, we're not the guys with Facebook.
Well, you don't want to be mixed up with them.
Shut down, right?
I have no idea. I do my best not to pay attention to what happens to Cambridge Analytica. Thank you very much.
Yes, which was a complete false alarm, by the way. That Guardian reporter got fed some bit of Oppo research or something. Cambridge, all Cambridge Analytica did was access publicly available data mining tools. And then, but because of the political environment in which it happened, I think Brexit or something, it turned into a massive stink.
Either way, we're not that.
You're not that. So why don't you further clarify what you are now that we know what you're not?
Yes. Now let's see if I can get in more trouble with the comms team.
And we should give a shout out to Francesca, talking about the comms team in the background. Hi, Francesca. Feel free to chuck your notepad at his head if he gets out of line.
Yeah. I've been told not to say this. We're the deep tech nerds of Capgemini.
Yet you just have.
Yes, we are.
Right. I see.
Now we're the guys where what we want to do is try and solve some of the really difficult problems. So if you look at something and go, not sure how you do that, or you've never done it before, then that's the sort of thing.
And when you say solve problems, in what context? I mean, you're not an R&D.
We do quite a lot of R&D.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. So we work across
I was taking consultants literally.
We go across a lot of different sectors. So there's about 100 labs up in Cambridge.
Oh, wow.
And we do everything from you can grow viruses and human tissue. Right. We can synthesize DNA on site.
We don't want to be growing viruses. Didn't you get that memo? That's a bad idea.
Well,
depends what type.
It does depend. It is a controlled environment. Yeah. We do everything.
That's what they said in Wuhan.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doing modems for Iridium, so satellite modems.
Right.
We've been doing that for about 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Doing things like we invented the round tea bag.
You invented the round tea bag?
Yes, we did.
God, I remember when that came along. It used to drive me mad as an innovation.
What was the rationale for having a round one rather than a square one?
Of your cup, isn't it?
Don't you
this
remember
is true. People don't drink from square mugs much.
There was a whole period of tea bag innovation. We had the round tea bag and all the marketing that went with that, which used to drive me mad because I thought, at the end of the day, the same amount of fucking tea's coming out. And then, do you remember, we had what they called a pyramid tea bag, which was annoying on two fronts. One, it wasn't a pyramid. It was a, what do they call it, tetrahedron, I think. It was a triangle-based pyramid, whereas pyramid's a square-based thing.
I didn't realise I didn't know the difference.
The geometric pedant in me was bridling at that. And then I also thought, no, this is getting silly now. It's still just a tea bag at the end of the day, and it deflates into something.
The rationale for that was that it keeps it open more, isn't it?
So you got more water going through.
Yeah.
But what's wrong with just getting a spoon and fucking with it till
it's too much trouble,
it turns into tea?
Don't mess around with your spoon that much.
Could this be any more of a British conversation?
British tangent. Anyway, so you invented the round tea bag.
Yes, you could have a non-British person there.
Well, so that's a great illustration. Yes. Thank you. Well, he's British now. You might not have heard.
No, not yet.
Yeah.
And I thought
it was all
done and
they rejected
dusted.
it.
The ceremony's in like 2 weeks. Yeah.
So you're not British till you do the ceremony.
Yeah. I have to,
do you get knighted
Charles?
or
I
something?
have to plead allegiance and shake Charles' hands. Anyway.
Speak with an English accent. Have you been working on that?
No.
You got to just do some. Just talk like a geezer.
Like a geezer. Like what's his name from Romford? Romford Pele.
Hey.
Yeah, Romford Pele.
I don't know
Arsenal.
what you're talking about.
Ray Parlour.
Oh, Ray Parlour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Not really quite as good as Pele, was he, though?
No.
To be honest.
No, but I presume that was a tongue-in-cheek nickname. So that's a good illustration of how diverse your areas of interest are.
Things like Ocado's warehouse system. So we did the communication system for the robots, which at the time was the densest mobile network in the world.
Okay.
So it's all
like so it's like a private network where they're moving.
Yeah, and all the robots running on a grid
right
above the pick and place.
Which is a good segue because we're going to talk about robots. Yeah. And Frank, what's your role within Cambridge?
So I work in the Intelligence Services Division, and that's where we put together our AI and digital services teams. And then we work in a number of different areas. So I've worked in things like med tech and doing surgical AI and all this sort of stuff. But I'm...
Surgical AI like robotic surgery, that sort of thing?
We do have a robotic surgery lab.
That was supposed to be the 5G killer use case.
They're looking for volunteers who've got back problems at the moment.
That's what I mean. I could do with just a robotic spine right now.
It was actually on analysing surgical videos, but
right.
But Yeah, you work in loads of different industries. Smart cat litter boxes is another one, for example, we've done within our division. But
where they tell you when there's too much shit in there.
And things like if the cat has weird patterns, it's going for a wee quite often, and so it probably has like a bladder infection or something, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's just a massive area. It's not like not like you're confined to doing telecom stuff.
Well, I am.
You are,
and you got
so I'm the one who's supporting the telecoms team, and I am previously of a telecoms ilk. So
you've got some. We were chatting before we started. So I normally my big effort at research normally consists of going to the LinkedIn page of a guest, but you sort of saved me the bother by telling me a little bit earlier. You were working in handsets back when Nokia was a big deal in handsets,
yeah. Did the camera and the screen and a bunch of other bits on the Nokia N70, for those who remember, probably not. And all the electronics on the top half of the Nokia N80. So light sensors, cameras, back in the day. All good stuff.
And then you did stuff Motorola as well, yeah?
Well, groundbreaking at the time.
He was senior baseband design engineer at Motorola.
Wow.
And then Ericsson. So he worked on the first ever 4G phone in the world. Her name was Berta. She was beautiful. She was about the size of a tablet.
Right.
But about 1.5 inches thick. Massive.
Yeah.
Lasted for 27 minutes when you took it off its stand.
But that's the starting point. Other people were standing on the shoulders of giants, and you were one of them.
There were 4 FPGAs in that thing. It got hot. 2 basebands, a CPLD, and I think it do about 300 megabits per second back in 2008, I think was when it was announced to the public.
Frank, you don't look old enough to have these chops. You must have been pretty young when you were doing this stuff.
Kind of mid-20s, yeah.
Yeah, good effort, man.
Yeah.
So I guess if we were to sort of simplify your job role, we'll consider you the telecoms sort of representative of Cambridge Consultants for the purpose of this podcast. And one of the reasons we want to chat, and one of the reasons I was chatting to Francesca about this and arranging it is you... Well, I'm not going to butcher it, partly because I didn't see it, but why don't you tell us what you were showcasing at Mobile Congress this year?
Yeah, so we had a lovely robot.
My foot.
Sorry about that. His name was Jackie.
Right.
My 3-year-old son keeps going, "Are you going working with Jackie?" No, but
Does Jackie stand for something like Hal?
No.
Doesn't. Okay,
No,
that's
doesn't.
good. We don't want that. It makes it more sinister, I think.
I've absolutely no idea where the name Jackie came from, and it's also my mother-in-law's name, so it's very mildly concerning.
Well, it's a gender ambiguous name, which is quite handy.
Yeah.
Robots obviously don't need to have a gender.
I usually think of it as a woman's name, Jackie. But
Mr. Chan.
I guess so. But my son's called
that's
Jack.
true.
I could just call him Jackie, and I don't, but I could.
No, that's what I mean. That's the difference, isn't it? Jack and Jackie. Unless you're Jackie Chan.
There we go. Thank you for proving my point.
So
anyway,
we
ignore him, Frank. Carry on.
We got a Unitree off-the-shelf robot. Not a crazy expensive one. Tens of thousands rather than hundreds of thousands. Took the head off of it, fixed some fairly serious security stuff, and added a new head. Added a few new bits from a network.
I need to know what was wrong with the old head. You say rather ominously fairly serious security stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
don't necessarily.
could it go psycho?
Put it this way: we replaced all the software, and we had absolutely nothing to do with the company that supplied the robot.
I see. And
what did he think about having a head transplant?
I'm going to have to guess about which part of the world that robot might have come from, but I'll leave it there.
Yes, but
you can guess, audience. Write in if you think you know.
But yeah, so we replaced all the software inside it, and then upgraded a few of the sensors, put in things like an IR camera and that sort of stuff, and then we trained it into a few new things. And effectively we've got a really interesting way of thinking about robotics, and one of them is about how you do human machine interaction.
Right.
And
this is a humanoid robot.
it's a humanoid robot. Yeah.
How big is it?
It's about 3.5 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're often quite small, aren't they?
Yeah, they're smaller than you think.
Which makes me feel better, actually, because when they rise up and rebel, then I feel I can just sort of kick them in the head. And,
Yeah.
You can't kick a robot in the head, mate. You
Well,
break your foot.
he did a head transplant with one.
I know, but not when the robot's actively rebelling. That's a different thing, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
He hasn't thought this through.
Well, it's only got a 2-hour battery life, so that's all you have to, be able to keep going.
That's actually something that quite often people bring up when people like me and Ian start banging on about Terminator and that sort of thing. They go, yeah, but all you got to do is turn the power off.
Yeah.
Until you
got
get the
batteries.
Matrix and they start using humans as power cells.
Well,
So that'll be my rebuttal to that.
Well, this was one of the other things we did, which was we took all of the software that we were running on it and took as much of it as possible off and then ran it with a NVIDIA Blackwell GPU running on a laptop, and it was connected by an Ethernet because we weren't able to quite get the 5G running.
I see,
from
but
our
the ideal demo is wireless.
Yeah.
So he was kind of cabled up.
Yeah, but the idea is, like, it had a couple of pretty hefty GPUs, Jetsons, running on it.
Yeah. I don't know why I keep calling him he. It's because you've given him a name.
Yeah.
I thought you said it was a girl's name. Make your mind
but
up.
then we came up with Jackie Chan. So
I'm not sure whether it's a he or she.
Oh, look, the blog on this matter is written by one Frank Long.
Yeah.
Telecoms can become the backbone of physical AI or miss their moment. Anyway, I'll get you to elaborate on that, as I'm sure you're about to anyway.
So the thing was, we got a lot of the capability of doing things like image processing and understanding what it's looking at off the robot.
Right.
So most of that processing was taken off, and then we could turn off the GPUs that were running on the robot because they consume a huge amount of power.
Yes.
Really expensive on a per robot basis. Huge amount of heat. Heat is a big problem with these things. So
With GPUs.
yeah,
Or
but just
robots in
generally
general.
robots. Yeah.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, there was one point where there was somebody from Reuters with a massive camera was walking by, and one of the motors overheated, and it goes into its safety shutdown. Now we put a barrier in, and we put a table in, and we
poking
put
the camera in.
So we're like with everybody a few inches away, but shutdown is stop, and when robots stop, they fall down.
How is it?
Yeah. So I was thinking, I hope they haven't seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, because that'll be what gets. 'Cause I think you got a fair bit of attention and coverage of.
We
that,
did.
didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
Not
Absolutely.
just falling down incidents.
No, just generally the whole robot demo.
What was the
thing.
what was the robot he?
Doesn't matter, mate.
I carry on
just-
calling him
just
he because
roll
I feel
with
like
it.
I know him now. But what was he
I
doing?
think that's a bit sexist, but there we go.
So he was. This doesn't sound very advanced. He was picking up boxes and moving it to the side.
Right.
And in Mobile World Congress, where there were literally boxing robots,
Yeah.
fighting with
And dancing
swords,
robots.
dancing,
Yeah.
Was it on-
backflipping.
Yep.
Honor went big on robots, didn't it?
I saw the Honor. I've got it on my phone. Even it was quite impressive because I've
doing
never seen.
It's doing like karate moves.
I've only ever seen this kind of thing on TV. I have to say that's the one thing that sticks in my mind about MWC is watching this robot dance with people on stage at the Honor stand. It was like
It's dangerous,
I can't
though.
watch this. This is like
dangerous.
watching something from a movie.
Have you seen the marathon? You know the marathon
Yes.
with it?
Yeah, we were.
Oh, they're
about that
rubbish.
this
They
week.
just fall over and
No, one of them beat everyone.
Some of them were pretty good.
I don't understand the point of this stuff. It's like, a robot's run faster than a person. It's like, well, you could put wheels on a thing and get it around the
It's
track.
like saying
quicker.
a
it's,
car's
like,
gone.
it's like, great. What does that tell you?
Well,
it proves the technical ability.
It's like some of those
dark.
DARPA challenges with self-driving, isn't it, though?
Yeah.
Where there was a point at which they were trying to get them to cover a course and not a single car could do it. And now they can do it fairly easily, actually. And there's dozens and dozens of... so some of it is just focusing the mind.
Frank, you just mentioned when we were talking about stuff where the robots were interacting with people, and you said that's a bit dangerous. Why is that?
Well, it's
'Cause
it's
they
about
clip
40
you.
kilos for our small one, and there were some really, really big ones that are quite a lot of kilos.
There's footage actually of. I mean, all the demos a lot of them seem to come from China. The dancing robots, the boxing robots.
I think. You correct me if I'm wrong, Frank. I think China's pretty ahead.
Oh
when
yeah,
it comes to
yeah.
robots, isn't it?
Physically, yes.
Yeah.
But
physically, yes.
there's there's one of these many videos that make their way onto social media of a little kid being hit by one accidentally while it's doing its routine, and he's lying on the floor crying, and the parents are obviously intervening. And I think someone put it up to say, we need to sort of be careful about these things being used widely. And
we had an e-stop. We had an emergency stop button, which had to be connected up at all times. We had a table then between us and anybody around. Then we had a barrier, and we had a chair to make sure that if there was any fall, it would be a controlled fall onto the chair. So, and then
I wish I'd seen it now that you're on. I wish I'd actually come and seen this. But,
three or four stands over, there was just, why, come have your picture next to this robot. We're kind of going, we're not sure that the safety mechanisms are quite there yet to allow us to interact. Right. So we're a bit more reticent, but you don't necessarily want to talk
Were you in Hall, were you down in the sort of Hall 6 area?
Yeah, clear, close to Ericsson. We're in the Capgemini stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in Hall 2?
Okay.
Was it Hall 2? It was Hall 2.
God, somehow I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how I missed that. I was walking to Ericsson the whole time. We always go and abuse their facilities.
Probably going by Google. Past Google.
Could be down the middle bit.
Yeah. But the one of the key things with this was being able to issue instructions in a more natural way. And now with Mobile World Congress, it's loud and all that, so you can do voice control in it. But one of the keys was you could point. So we had people pointing to which side did you want to put the box, and then make a decision as to which way am I going to do the box.
So that's a really big deal with robots right now, because it's one thing, which is I think some of these incredibly impressive demos we've seen with like coordinated dancing Chinese robots and stuff. But to a certain degree, they're just following quite a pre-programmed thing. Yeah. And so when we're getting into this actually being able to follow instructions and exist in your environment, that's a different thing entirely, isn't it?
Well, I'm guessing the on-all display was just a pre-programmed, do what the...
I wouldn't want to comment on what they're doing necessarily.
But you can speculate.
Okay, we can speculate, but having a robot that's actually following what the dancers are doing, is that feasible at the moment? That it was actually like looking at these people standing in front of it and mirroring exactly what they did?
It's
because it was quite sophisticated.
It's potentially possible, because this is where that physical AI stuff starts coming in. Yeah. Because, for example, on our robot, we have an infrared camera where what it does is it tries to figure out what does your skeleton actually look like. And then it picks up what does your arm look like then, and you only have 3 joints, so all it really needs is 3 main data points of going, okay, I think relative to the skeleton, this is where the arm is, and therefore once I draw a line out and think about what does that point to, I can have a pretty good idea of where that's going.
Right.
And that's the term is a vector, or set of vectors of what shape am I looking at, and where is it relative in space? Now, when you're figuring out and translating that into, I need to put something over there, you need the robot to understand, 1, what it's looking at, and 2, what that thing is pointing to near it. So it needs to understand the world near it as well.
So it's that spatial awareness.
Yeah, and understanding the world.
Yeah.
And having an idea, the term is a world model, of here's approximately what happens when I look at things and what this thing kind of is.
So we're getting closer to mimicking how the human brain works, at least in that context, and that must require an awful lot of processing and cleverness.
There's a whole bunch of models. There's a chap, Jan LeCun, who's got an idea of how we get to AGI, and having a world model of kind of how physics works and how I can look at that glass, and I have a fairly good idea of how hard that glass is and what happens when I drop it on the ground.
Right, so the physical properties of the glass, yeah.
Precisely. But I don't have to ever have touched it. I can tell.
Yeah.
And it's a different shape, and it's probably...
But because you were a kid once, and you once probably chucked a glass on the floor and it smashed, and then you learnt about it from being a kid. Yeah. So it's trying to... This stuff that we learn over decades, it's trying to... introduce that through software and that sort of thing.
A lot of it is around how do you model physics. So again, another example that's typically used is, I want to throw a piece of paper into the bin. You lob it into a bin. Yeah. You can judge that.
Compared to a rock it's completely different.
And it's not like,
aerodynamics
oh,
and
I'm
everything.
sitting down and doing a calculation and I'm applying exactly this level of force. It's, I've got a pretty good idea that this is about the right level. So this is one of the things as a world model that you can then incorporate into not just robotics, but I mean, this is one of the lenses that they put on it in the world to make it, one, interesting, but two, you're bringing it to life in a way that's relevant to people. So
that's fascinating. And you were telling me before we started that your demo won some kind of award. That you were surprised about.
We won our Tom's Hardware Best in Show Robotics because they said it was pretty much the only robotics demo where the robot was making decisions on the
as
fly.
opposed to just following a script.
So like part of that...
Which makes me think the honour thing then, if they looked at it rigorously, is just a programmed routine.
We'll assume that. Frank's not going to,
as I say, that was their
confirm or
judgment.
deny.
Yeah.
But I'm inclined to believe your assumption there, Ian.
Well, that's obviously what Tom's Hardware is. If they've done this award properly, has come to that.
I think that's a fair assumption as well.
I mean, with regards to picking up the box, you were able to put the box down any way you want. So it wasn't like, put it into this harness and therefore it knows exactly where, how much do you open your hands in front of something that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
So you're making
and
novel calculations.
Because what way around is it? So if you have it lengthways, okay, I need to put my hands a little bit extra beyond it and then bring them down and bring it in.
So all that stuff that we take for granted that we've learnt over decades as adult human beings. And it's fascinating when you look at it that way, just that process of learning.
Yep.
And we've all got kids. You're a bit earlier in that process. So you could probably relate to it even more. You're having to teach them stuff that's totally obvious to an adult, but isn't obvious to a little kid.
Yeah.
And then they learn incredibly quickly, of course.
What do you mean I need to pick stuff up off the floor?
There's that as well.
Can't daddy's feet pick it up by standing on it?
Believe me, my 21-year-old still doesn't understand about picking shit off of the floor. But that's another matter. Yes, no, that's fascinating. That teaching them how to interact with their environment and make environmentally pertinent choices is fascinating.
Yeah. So there was two things that the robot had to do that was more challenging than it sounds and quite clever, which was you basically put the box down in front of it. It figures out which orientation it was. You point and tell it where it puts the box, and it will pick the box up, turn over, and put it where you pointed.
Okay.
Which is actually quite a cool and contemporary thing.
Exactly.
So it's using sensors. There's a lot of sensors for it to do this. This box moving, I'm guessing, to sort of figure out how it brings.
Not as many as you might think.
Right.
Not as many as you might think. There are obviously sensors on the motors to go. All right. Okay. I'm encountering.
It's able to
physical.
somehow replicate touch to some extent, or at least resistance.
Very basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not like a 150, 200,000 pound robot, right?
Yes. Most of it's through cameras.
Mostly visual. Yeah.
Mostly cameras. Okay.
Most. The majority of it.
Sort me out.
Yeah. So it's sort of looking at the pointing to a place and having the robot move to that. That's all done through camera technology, I'm guessing. And
yeah, and like some of it as well is. I wouldn't say no.
Cool.
Once again, I've been forced into this.
Yes, you've been forced
for the record,
almost at gunpoint.
Like with the box. You have things like shiny reflections and stuff like that. I mean, we weren't able to do training in Mobile World Congress.
Yeah.
So being able to actually go, well, there's this horribly shiny light that's above this, making it look different at different angles and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So
because
it's
there's
not
all
a
sorts
fully
of things that could
environment.
mess with a robot's head
Yeah.
that you wouldn't necessarily know until you've put it to the test.
Correct.
Yeah.
So historically, you would effectively had to, basically fully pre-program a lot of this stuff and stick it in a harness and, make sure that the box is going down, draw a square on the table and say, you need to put the box in the square, otherwise I can't pick it up. And it's a particular box and all that sort of stuff. Whereas the way that this was trained was we had some folks in a lab pick it up and put it down, pick it up, put it down, 60 times.
Okay.
So it was half an hour
So
worth
that's
of training.
the replicability thing.
Yeah, and so to train it into a new task, it's about half an hour worth of work.
Is this quite different? Because robotics is not new, and everybody seems to be suddenly excited and talking about robotics and calling it physical AI. But robotics and machines that seem to be taking on some amount of decision making have been around for a long, long time in factories. Scott and I were in Hulu, isn't it pronounced?
Yeah, Hulu,
watching some of these little robots that look like
Frank
droids
knows from back in the day when he was a young slip of a lad working for
moving
Nokia.
up and down the sort of walkways and dropping stuff off, and you move in front of them and they stop and move around you and all of this. But is this sort of fundamentally doing it in a different way, or is it, and how, if so?
So this is doing it in a different way, and you've got a number of components that kind of come into it, where you've got, for example, that world model of here is what I kind of expect.
Right.
And then you've got vision, language, action models, which is I see something or I've got some instruction and I can take an action. And this is like, these reasoning models that you get online where it's like, I'm thinking, and 17 minutes later it comes back with sort of, here's the decision I've made and here's what I need to do. So it's that except more in the real world, where you've got vision as one of the inputs and language as well, and it goes through large language processing. But then it comes out with what's the actions then am I going to take?
So the whole generative AI, large language model stuff has made a huge impact on what you're doing in this area, basically.
And the general development of neural networks as well.
Right.
Then. So it's things like now digital twins is a little bit passé, possibly, but also very of the moment. I really think we need a new term for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe,
digital twin is kind of weird, but a sort of digital facsimile of the real world.
The Matrix.
Yeah.
The Matrix. There we are.
So you've got NVIDIA call it omniverse.
Right. I don't think any more helpful.
Anything that echoes
anything that starts with omni.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just too all-encompassing by definition. It's
a bit Skynet, isn't it?
It just seems to be too all-encompassing for my taste.
Right.
Well, I have a problem with verse. Metaverse, now we had the multiverse with Marvel, Omniverse.
Omniverse,
Omnidirectional, that is a thing.
No, that's actually a proper word though, isn't it?
It is. So when we're training it to climb stairs, because stairs are no longer an impediment to robots, the Daleks never quite got that far.
No.
It's one of the ways we were training was with the Omniverse, which is basically a digital representation of the real world.
Yeah.
And you can replicate environments and all that sort of stuff to go, I want to train this system to operate in a virtual version of the real world, but with a certain amount of physics involved and being able to actually understand the implications of it. So this is something that's been in reinforcement learning for a long time. Of you'll have seen videos online of silly AI stuff actually learning relatively quickly how to do something. Yeah. But it's when you've then got a version that maps on really very well to the physical world, that's when things start to change.
That's always been one of my queries about digital twins, or whatever we want to call them, is how accurate they are. So I know about them in isolation. I recently did a project with a company called VHive that does digital twins of radio towers, and I can see how in that specific little environment, it's very useful because then they have a way of comparing, of having an optimal digital installation of a tower versus what's happened in practice, and then they can see whether or not they match. But this, to labour the term omni, this thought that the whole world can be accurately digitally replicated such that it's a useful template for, let's say, robots or physical AI. I don't know, I'm still a bit
You might be
sceptical.
living with it now, Scott.
Well, I went back to the Matrix thing.
It's a matter of degrees, right? I mean, there was a thing recently where I went on to Google Earth because somebody was saying, oh yeah, they're down to 5 centimetre resolutions. Like, no, they're not. That's ridiculous. And I had a look at my back garden on Google Earth, and I noticed that the hose for my...
You could make it out.
Yeah, my garden hose
Wow.
was actually out across the garden.
From that morning.
Oh no! But they are at that resolution, and you know, going to checking my mum's
How are
house,
they
'cause
doing that?
that's the first thing you
How are
do.
they doing that with drones or
Satellite
Right.
imaging. Yeah,
satellite imaging to get down to that?
yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, my
So that's Google Earth top down as opposed to
Right.
Street View, which
but
is which
you
they
make a
do
good
with-
Yeah,
you make
okay.
a good point. You can do it with drones. Why not? And
I mean,
just
you'd
stitch the
encounter
two together,
privacy
right?
problems, wouldn't you, with drones? I'm sure. I'm
Google doesn't
I'm
give a
not
fuck
sure
about
why you don't
privacy.
encounter privacy
Well-
problems with satellites either, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would have thought that would have already triggered some kind of lawsuit about why is
I
Google
think
looking in my garden.
I think what they
at
have
my-
to do
They're-
is just blur out things like license plates and faces
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that sort
Right,
of thing,
okay.
and street signs and street numbers.
Or naked people frolicking in the swimming pool.
Exactly.
It would be
Constant
GDPR and all
down my
that,
neck
but
of the wood.
it's all personally identifiable information, you know. Whereas
Yeah.
Right.
in theory, your back garden is kind of public.
Yeah. Well,
If you're above it, I mean,
Well, I mean, they presumably have done their due diligence on the law on that stuff.
I presume so. Yes.
the company would never not look into something like that, would it?
To be fair, Germany, you know, if you're doing Street View in Germany, it's not as useful.
Really?
Yeah.
It's,
yeah,
is
it's
it
a lot more
more
blurred out?
more anonymised?
Yeah,
I
far
see.
more.
Yeah. So obviously they've done their due diligence on national
Yeah. Okay.
laws on that.
I
go on.
I was going to ask about because you were saying you took the GPUs out of the
Yes.
robots, because this gets a bit more into sort of networky telecom
very
type
much so.
stuff, because we are a telecom podcast. And were the GPUs then in a kind of a unit?
We had a very nice Blackwell laptop, actually.
Right.
Running a Blackwell processor, which we initially put in a cabinet and took out relatively quickly when it started overheating, and the cabinet was getting incredibly hot.
Was that the previous generation of Dog's Bollocks NVIDIA GPUs?
It's the current,
one.
generation.
Isn't what about Vera Rubin?
Yeah, that's not.
Oh,
available,
that's
though.
not out yet.
It's not
Oh, so, okay. So it's the current one that's available that's
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
top
yeah.
end. Okay, sorry, carry on.
So we're running the models on that, and then all that's running on the robot is a relatively low level control of the motors and the camera system and that sort of thing. So there's very little actually running on the robot, and the whole approach with that is you didn't actually need those GPUs on the robot. You needed a way less compute than.
Yeah.
So there is some processing in the robot, but it's not
natively.
like,
Natively, the version we had, which to be fair wasn't the cheapest version, had two Jetsons, NVIDIA
Right.
Jetsons. So fairly expensive pieces of kit, quite a few thousand.
yeah. Still GPUs.
Yeah, but they add weight and
Yeah.
they add
Power consumption. Yeah.
So
And heat.
when running, it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours battery life.
That's reassuring.
And when you're getting it off the network, it's about 2 to 2.5. We were getting 2.5 solidly.
Okay.
Okay, so let's say double.
But if you optimized and kind of went, we'll actually take the hardware out and the associated.
And is there a trade-off
storage and-
because you're taking it out of the robot and putting it into
Like
something that's not?
latency or
And
something?
depends on your network, yeah. And this
Well, I mean,
is
obviously
where-
at MWC it would have been in a small area anyway.
yeah. I mean,
But he wasn't wireless in MWC, was he?
it wasn't partly
Oh, it wasn't wireless
because
as well, of course, yeah.
the private 5G setup we had was in Paris. And the robots were in the UK, and neither team wanted to necessarily send one to the other way before because we're doing
'Cause
research
reasons.
and
Yeah.
Right.
you have to send it for a few weeks and that sort of thing. Like we're 100% confident it would work
This is a thing you did. The private 5G was done for. You said at the start, and I've forgotten who.
because we had the private 5G. We've got
yeah.
5G in a box where it's basically for emergency services. You can just roll out private
Right.
5G base station.
Yeah.
And this is something like Capgemini Engineering are doing. So we were next to them. So they had their drones and their situational awareness stuff, and we had our robot next to it. And we had lots of plans to actually connect the two.
Yeah.
It's just if we had another month,
Right, okay.
we would have logistically
Okay.
been able to make it happen.
And what was the ultimate purpose of this demonstration? What were you trying to show the world?
This is
Sorry, I asked you a question just when you're trying to have a beer.
it's all right. Get the lubrication before.
Exactly. Get ready for a big monologue.
Here we go. All right, strap in. Basically, networks are going to be providers of intelligence. And that sounds a bit buzzwordy, bit sort of... but
Providers or conduits?
providers.
Okay, carry on.
Providers of intelligence. So, I mean, this is where Nokia, for example, have changed their tagline from connecting people to connecting intelligence.
Is that God? I missed that. Did you get that?
Well,
tagline?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me because the whole thing.
No, I was just wondering if you'd heard that.
Super cycle.
With-
No, I don't.
If not, Nokia's.
I don't go and
marketing
read Eric's Nokia's mottos very often. No.
Yeah. They don't change them that often.
No. Okay.
But we
Now we know.
basically got a situation, and this is going to become even more with 6G, where the network has access to information that the physical device doesn't. And also, by offloading that processing from the physical device, you save a huge amount of power, cost an individual device. You know, it's more energy efficient, it's cheaper to run, it's safer because it's lighter. You know, we're coming back to that safety conversation. You know, you're not quite a good few kilos off if you don't need as big a battery.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so power heat and all that good
A
stuff.
lot of it is just the same basic rationale as that has been applied to things like cloud computing for decades. Of have a thin client and a lot of the work being done remotely,
Well, the clients aren't very thin, though, are they?
relatively.
Well, the physical AI stuff does tend to change this because if you think about a physical device operating in the world now, humanoid robots are one instantiation of that. But do you need legs? Put a wheel on it, right? As you were saying with regards to the marathon, right? In a warehouse situation where you got perfectly flat floors and all that good stuff, why not just have wheels?
Yeah. Or table tennis. Did you see that this week?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we wrote
Equally
about
pointless. It's like, a machine can hit a tennis ball harder than a person. Big shock.
It's the reaction time. It's
Yeah, it wasn't just about how hard it hit it. I think you've missed the point, Ian.
Right. Okay.
It was the fact that it could scurry around and react and hit proper shots.
Okay.
and
I don't envisage myself watching robots table tennis anytime soon. I quite like watching them beat the shit out of each other. That's more entertaining. Hence the film Real Steel. No one's made real table tennis, have they, or whatever it is? But
I mean, this is the thing. Are the robots gradually getting better at sports? Because they've gone from chess to Go to now we've got.
But there's no market for it.
Yeah.
Because sport is a contest of like human will, isn't it? And it's about watching people push themselves to the limit, and it's that like battle of the emotions and the personalities that are involved. No one wants to watch a robot playing tennis.
I think I'd watch a robot playing rugby.
Yeah, but you're in the thick of it.
I mean, I'm a former rugby player. I'd watch one play rugby.
I'd watch it and then I'd probably never watch it again.
I know we're just fucking around here, but you obviously wouldn't want to watch it play against people because that would just be carnage.
I suppose there's a certain amount of that.
Unless
it'd be pointless
some
as
opponent
well,
of yours that you've still got a grievance.
There is a sport that's coming out in, I can't remember if it's America or Australia, where there's basically two guys running at each other, and it's something like the big hit or something like that.
Well, and there's the slapping thing.
There is, yeah. So imagine,
the UFC guys.
Yeah.
The UFC guy, Dana White's got this whole separate sport where blokes are just, and presumably women as well.
Oh, the women do it too.
Yeah, they're just slapping each other.
It's
that's their thing.
Game that kids play where they hold their hands together.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
if you flinch your hand, you get
Slapsies.
slapsies. Yeah.
So this is where they take it in turns. These
to hate
massive,
that.
beefy geezers just wind up and lamp
And
each
they
other.
have like talcum on their hands and stuff, like to smack. I don't know.
Why would anybody want to do that?
Well, apparently it's doing
Money.
well.
You want to basically become research subjects for head injuries. That's
exactly.
I think the main one. Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to do that with a robot because you'd die.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was my point. So we're not going to have robots versus humans.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that you would watch robots versus robots rugby?
I'd watch it. I'd be intrigued.
I mean, I love Robot Wars. That was great.
Right. Well, you are in that sort of area of R&D.
I mean, it's nerds, right?
I think it would hold some attraction initially, and then I think people probably fairly quickly get bored of it. But
I'd certainly watch a one-off special.
Unless the robots became so sophisticated that they were like indistinguishable from people, like sort of replicants in Blade Runner, then you might watch it. But then you're just basically back to watching humans except they're really fast maybe, and like they can fly through the air when they jump. That'd be fun.
That's basically the Olympics, isn't it?
It's like the Olympics on steroids, but not actually steroids.
Wait, hang on. The Olympics on steroids.
There is a thing now, apparently.
There is
drugs. It's called the enhanced games.
The enhanced games, yes.
We're not in the best version of the future, are we?
If you could have an enhanced games where it's basically not drugs that are allowed, but it's bits of technology in your body. And
we are getting properly into science fiction territory. The stuff that like people like Philip K. Dick were all over like decades
2000
ago.
AD, the magazine.
To pull it back to the real world a bit more, but because Scott was talking about like thin clients and things being in the cloud, and
this
like,
is the telecoms.
I don't think
it's all got to be connected.
I don't think there has been any thin client stuff at all. Really, I think I agree with the view that where it's gone has been either big data centers doing like lots of processing and large language models, and maybe you put some other stuff there as well, or you have it on the device, and that bit, which is where the telcos want to play, but there's a huge amount of skepticism about this. And and then it depends on where it is, because if you talk to people at BT, for instance, in the UK, and this whole vision of like having the intelligence distributed across lots and lots and lots of sites, but not in the kind of robots of the devices, but telecom infrastructure, they don't see the need, they don't see the argument for doing that. They're more into the idea of putting it maybe at 5 or 6 data centres across the UK, and there isn't really a latency problem they're arguing that you need to address by going to thousands of cell sites.
There's a number of things with that. One is, mostly right, with regards to having it as a switching site as opposed to on a RAN, right?
Yeah.
Now, I know NVIDIA and Nokia, for example, are getting the RAN onto GPUs, and as a result, looking to serve AI alongside all your RAN stuff, which is great. Interesting efforts, but great.
Early days.
Yeah, early days. That'll be a while coming. However,
more on that later. We're going to talk about Nokia's quarterlies later, so that'll come up.
I do think inferencing in RAN sites will be a thing. You can have an argument about timelines, because if you're going for an NVIDIA NVL72, for example, which is a big rack of 72 GPUs that consumes 130 kilowatt hours. So the way I think about, or kilowatts, the way I think about it is you basically stick about 40 kettles in a wardrobe, in a single wardrobe. That's what that looks like.
Right.
And it's about $3.5 million each, $3.5 million each for one of these things.
Right.
Now, are those going to go at RAN sites? I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
And you will need a primary and a secondary as well. So you're talking kind of 6-7 million per RAN
what is the
site.
use case for that amount of expense and power?
So, but there's a load of...
There isn't one because they won't make any money. If they're spending $3.5 million at 19,000 RAN sites in the UK, just to add that in.
But the thing is, you then get into what is a GPU? And a GPU is primarily, well, originally is for playing computer games, but training is what GPU is really good at.
Yeah.
And it's not very good at inferencing, which is once you've built your model, you want to serve up your model, right? And
so you could use other chips basically to do this.
There are other chips, and there's an awful lot of chips under development that are offering 10 times. I've seen much higher numbers than 10 times of better chips or better performance. So, for example, the UK government wants to put 100 million quid into UK startups that do this.
Yep.
I wrote about that.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
or even CPU, like more advanced CPUs that are coming out of Intel, the Xeon 6 stuff. That's one of the options.
But there's companies like Lightspeed, there's companies
Yep.
like Fractile who are building dedicated inference processors.
Yeah.
And once you start going, actually, I need an awful lot less power to run this. Now
Although
we're talking something.
I guess NVIDIA is probably conscious of that and is probably developing its own inference processors with a lot more money than everybody else.
and
And
they
they get
kind of-
everybody into the CUDA ecosystem.
I
then-
should have mentioned Grok as well. This is not the...
That's the language processing unit.
Yeah, it's very confusing because you've got the Twitter Grok, which is
The
their...
Elon Musk Grok.
Yeah, the Elon Musk, I'm going to swear at people sort of...
No, we don't approve of that.
No, not so much. But that's completely disconnected from the
This one came out of Google's
Is
TPU.
that
didn't
Grok
it?
with a Q?
Grok with a Q.
Yeah.
It's language processing unit.
It's the guy who was in charge, as some understand, it's the guy who was in charge of Google's TPU development previously.
Yeah.
Who then went off and did his own thing.
Yeah. But those LPUs, that is dedicated for inferencing.
Yeah.
So we're getting lots of other PU being processing unit. We're getting lots of other PUs coming along that are sort of specifically good at one or one set of tasks.
The problem with that for me is like people don't want to do. This is the issue for software developers is that they want to work with one platform, don't they? They want to work within one ecosystem and. This is where companies like NVIDIA look attractive because everybody's 6 million developers or whatever working within CUDA. If they can come up with their own inference processor and you're already familiar with that software platform.
CUDA's your classic moat.
Whereas if you get lots of distinct custom silicon options coming along, it makes it harder for people to do something that you could then, we're fed up with using Grok. There's something else has come along in the future. But
this is where the AI grid stuff that you guys were talking about a few weeks ago comes into it. It's okay, I want to run this workload. Where am I running it? So say for example, we take this robot that we developed. You can run all of the AI on the device completely disconnected from the network. So it doesn't need a network connection to run.
Yeah.
Or when it's in a network, it can then turn off all that compute, or it doesn't need that compute if you can guarantee the quality of service and run it from an edge location. Or if it's in a really controlled environment or you're not doing it in a way that actually is really, really, really dependent on end-to-end latency, sure, run it from your massive water-cooled data center or from like AWS or whatever hyperscaler you want to run it from. So this is where am I running this?
And what's the optimal way of doing it?
Correct. And so, for example, you could see on an industrial site, you would locate a whole bunch of edge AI processing on a private 5G network because it's a fairly constrained environment. You go, I've got all of these robots. I can guarantee quality of service. I don't need to have a whole load of expensive GPU compute in any of them. I can put all of that into a few centralized locations within this site and then run everything through the 5G network, the private 5G network. So each individual endpoint is pretty dumb. And that's power. That's efficient from a power consumption point of view. Each unit is cheaper, and also doing things like deploying new models or whatever. It's an IT problem then rather than a device problem.
Yeah. So are the? I mean, that's what when I talk to telcos about this sort of issue of putting GPUs at cell sites, they often bring up the power problem that you mentioned.
But that, as I said, there's a path to where that isn't a problem anymore.
And well, I mean, one thing that came out of FutureNet this week for me, a couple of meetings I had, is this emphasis on the GPUs that they're developing at the moment with Nokia that they're trying to use that you would put at a cell site. They're really trying to get this across. They're not the ones that you would go and put in a hyperscaler facility to do large language model training. It's a much kind of slimmed down version, and you get some of the benefits of being able to do some of this computation, but it's also suitable for doing random processing. And if you find that sweet spot, then
it's much more reasonable from a cost point of view. So you're not going to put in this massive, So this is part of the problem of you go, they're never going to do that because you're going to need 7 million quid worth of hardware on that site. And then you go, well, actually, there's a path to, you don't necessarily need to put that in there. there's all of these other ways of doing it with regards to inference-only processing, with regards to, you know, cutting down on the architecture, and then just running, you know, you rebuild your RAN stack so that it runs on a GPU, but maybe not a standard GPU.
Yep. Yeah, totally.
So I've got a broader question, which is sort of germane to where telecoms and this stuff that we've just been talking about intersect. At Mobile Congress this year, we've mentioned Nokia once or twice already, which is obviously massively diminished since you left there 20 years ago. They do a Sunday event where, fair play to them, they put the CEO and other senior execs up on stage and they let us journalists chuck questions at them, and I commend them for how accessible they are. And the question I asked, it was partly about 6G, but it was partly about this sort of physical AI sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the two, I'm sure as we get closer to 6G, this physical AI stuff's going to get more and more conflated with 6G anyway, whether or not that's accurate, or whether or not that really represents what 6G is remains to be seen. But anyway, I predict that will happen, because I think with each new generation, there's sort of gain. There's the actual standardization and the patents and the clever 3GPP stuff that goes on, but then they're also thinking, why should anyone give a shit? And so they're going to try and conflate it with like mega trends and try and associate the two, which is fine. I understand why they do that. And so we're going to get a lot of that. And I asked Justin Hotard, the CEO of Nokia, this question, and he was talking a lot about physical AI and what that means for the future of the mobile network. And he even used a term that I hadn't heard that much before. In fact, I even looked it up because I have my laptop open at the thing. I even looked it up while he was using it. He used a term which is kinetic tokens, which from the tiny bit of understanding I have about how AI works, you know, I had a little go. In fact, I threw this at you earlier before we started recording. I had a little go at understanding tokens in Scott language, and you seem to think I wasn't miles off. And then kinetic, adding kinetic as a qualifier means putting tokens, but in this sort of physical domain. Maybe some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, like with your robot being able to understand someone pointing at something or understand how to pick up a box or whatever. And Justin Hotard reckoned that these kinetic tokens were probably going to be something that really defines the future of mobile networks.
Yep.
Because suddenly there's this novel form of traffic, and there could be a lot of it. And one of the reasons I thought of steering the conversation in this direction is everything we were just saying about these robots who may be better off housing limited computation of their own, but relying on remote computation a hell of a lot, which is obviously where networks come in, and presumably wireless networks. You can't have these robots going around with wires hanging off them the whole time. So, you know, what do you think about that? The significance of all this stuff we've been talking about for the telecom sector and mobile networks, is this going to be a massive paradigm shift in the demand on the network and in what network providers are going to have to do?
So there's a few things there to kind of address.
That was a bit of a monologue. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. I'll make my way through them eventually. I mean, with regards to paradigm shift, I don't know. Really,
that's a bit of a kitsch term. I apologise,
but
I couldn't think of a better one on the spur of the moment.
But you've got, for example, kinetic tokens, right?
Yeah,
this is an example. You could argue that it's an example of semantic compression, and semantic networking. Because semantic is one of those words that I will admit I'd never really fully understood until about 12 months ago.
Okay. And it presumably means something different from us journalists quibbling over the definition of words.
Yeah. So it's. Are you familiar with the Shannon theory?
Rings a bell. I bet you're more familiar with it.
Shannon Hartley, yeah.
So the whole there's
how much information you can push down a pipe of a
correct. Yeah.
I knew you'd know.
Really simple version, and you know, it always comes back to, okay, we've got this frequency and this encoding and all that good stuff, and when you then start going into it and go, wait, hang on a second, the Shannon theory is about information, not about data. And it's then, how do we effectively turn lots and lots of data about the world into information, because there is a massive difference between the two. I gave an example earlier. We had that infrared camera where it has a look at you, it tries to figure out what's your skeleton and what are you pointing at. And it goes, okay, this is an arm. It is pointed this direction. Does it really need to know anything else about you than that? Does the rest of the robot need to? It doesn't. So why send it? So send that information.
Right.
Instead of sending all the video feed.
I see.
And that, you can say that you describe the angles that your arm is at in terms of vectors. So up, down, left, right. And what direction is it going? And so that is enough information to tell a system, here's the information I need to know and to do my job. And in the same way that if you look at, go back into the origins of graphics processors, computer game graphics, they're all made out of triangles. And this is partly why GPUs are so good, is it's about how many triangles have you got and what sort of configuration and colours and all that kind of stuff.
And as things get more photorealistic, the triangles get smaller and more numerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you turn everything into effectively vectors.
Right.
So you can break the world down into these triangles in the same way that, like with pixels.
And a vector says where they reside and how they're aligned.
Yeah. So instead of sending things like videos, you can send vectors of information about what it's looking at and what it needs to do. And so it's a language, but just for robots or for other things. It doesn't have to be robots. It could be for cars. It could be for autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
It could be for not just humanoid, but wheeled robots or forklifts or whatever,
Indeed.
So this is where you've got that communication of stuff that isn't human communication. You're communicating information now. And I think as that grows, agent to agent, so if you know what an AI agent is, it's taking in information, it's then making a decision. Right? And then when you're connecting up multiple agents from different systems and, it's going, okay, this is this and this is this and I need to go here and I need to do this. Once you start connecting all of that up and they're all chatting to each other, you suddenly see, there's a huge amount of communication happening here that has nothing to do with humans.
Yes. Yeah, well, agent to agent. That kind of freaks me out by itself.
And some of that those communication standards have not been fully established. There's a bunch of them.
MCP is the main one, isn't it?
A2A as well.
Yeah.
But, a lot of them are kind of very heavily biased around what are we doing with large language models at the moment.
Yeah.
And you draw the lines out 5, 10, 20 years. What's that going to look like? Well, if you say it's just more of what we're doing now, maybe you're right. I don't think
could
they are.
Exponentially grow.
Yeah.
And so that could, to distill my monologue earlier to a single question, do you think then it's realistic that mobile networks, the way in which they operate and the demands on them are going to sort of radically change over, let's say, the next decade or whatever?
Well, this is where it lines up with the physical AI stuff, in particular the ISAC, integrated sensing and communication, because remember I said earlier, it's about having an understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Right? And ISAC is basically at 6G frequencies. You can basically make the network act as a radar.
Yeah.
And the network then adjusts to what is around, and it can go, okay,
kind of goes back to the digital twin thing a bit. It's like a real-time digital twin.
It's very much that.
Yeah.
It's very much that, because you can use it as radar sensing. You can.
And that answers my question about how accurate a digital twin can be. Because if it's not something that's dynamically being updated the whole time, it's going to be obsolete constantly, isn't it? Whereas that kind of answers that.
Whereas Isaac, in order to actually communicate, you need to have a real-time view of the world and how it is and what's changed. And, there's this car driving by and therefore I need to change how I'm communicating and change the frequencies and all that.
Well, I think they're going to struggle to do it with anything other than millimetre wave to any degree of accuracy.
Well,
that's the problem.
Yeah.
And no one's going to spend money on
it.
Because you need the spectrum to do it with accuracy. And there
you
isn't
need
enough.
a really fat pipe.
Yeah. And also who's going to pay for it all? That's the other question.
Yes.
I'm skeptical about. I could see a world of. This is the IoT story basically to me again. It's the IoT. Self-driving cars didn't happen in 5G. Maybe something like that's going to happen in 6G, and it's going to be robotics rather. And I could see if that takes off, it could change traffic patterns, and there could be more.
The self-driving car thing is growing.
It's not making any difference to network connectivity traffic. 5G self-driving cars and 5G remote surgery. Those things are scoffed at by CTOs nowadays. Now we're leading up to 6G and people are coming out with the same old sort of hype cycle stuff about robotics. I could see like physical AI robots being a thing.
Yep.
But I think the kinetic tokens thing you mentioned, by the way, nobody knows what that means. I've talked to loads of people about that in the industry.
It was the first time I'd heard of it.
No one has a clue what John Saul was talking about.
I know.
Because
this isn't in any way to try and embarrass Frank, who's obviously forgotten more about this shit than I'll ever know. But I threw it at him when we were preparing earlier, and you hadn't heard the term before.
But I agree with what Frank said, which is that you look at what a robot's doing and you think, what do we need to send and what don't we need to send? And there's some computation that goes on there that's important. But then what actually goes down your data pipe is data. Neil McRae had a really good response to this on LinkedIn recently when he went, it's internet traffic.
At the end of the
day, it's internet traffic. You're still going to be sending something that can be measured in terms of gigabytes or exabytes. And the signaling delay is important for sure.
Yep.
Which we call latency.
Yep.
How much is going down that pipe's important, because the networks need to be able to cope with that. But a lot of this other stuff's quite, it's more like the computation that actually happens within the machine or the robot, figuring out what do we need to send is the key thing. I
think there's two sort of ways of thinking about this, and certainly in the short term, that private 5G alignment, I see it as indisputable for things like logistics and industry and stuff like that. For private 5G, there is a use case there, without a doubt.
But in sort of defined environment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whether or not it's out in the general world, I'm kind of 50-50 on at the moment. Now, there are other use cases for that AGI stuff. One thing I was talking to somebody about recently was, it's back to advertising, isn't it? Personalized advertising.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, it's allowed.
So the idea is, for example, you could have somebody drinking one brand of fizzy flavoured water, and somebody else is served the exact video, but somebody drinking a different brand of fizzy flavoured water and speaking a different language, but nothing's been changed. The network has decided that this is who you are and this is what your preference is, and basically the company is signed up to, hey, sell our product brand.
And I get why you're wincing, because it seems like such a sort of sordid manifestation of it, but that is the real world. That is where
and that's CDN. That's CDN nowadays, right?
Yeah.
That's, Google will pay an absolute fortune to shave milliseconds off of ad serving.
Wow.
Yeah. Because the faster it turns up, the more likely it is somebody will actually see it.
Well, I hope they improve on Amazon, which they still haven't got beyond offering to sell me something that I just bought.
Apparently,
they just think you want to buy more of the same thing.
Well, I just think it's fucking stupid. I mean, the one time, maybe I want two of them, but normally the one time you don't want it is when you've just satisfied that need, surely.
Isn't that, don't you only buy beer?
He's on.
Therefore, their advertising is completely irrelevant.
He's on to his 14th laminator this month.
You had me at beer. What was I going to say? I reckon we're going to do one newsy item, which will be Nokia quarterlies. So I think we can still carry on with this, but I am aware that there was another topic which is very relevant to telecoms that Frank had flagged up that it is on his radar, which is autonomous networks. So if you think if you're all right for us to sort of say that we've done this physical AI sort of robot thing to
We've done it to death. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've killed the robots.
Why don't
I've got another 5 hours worth of talking in me.
Yeah, well, we all have. So I was saying to you earlier, part of my challenge is at this sort of like point in the podcast of me trying to pivot it and move it on. And I wanted to make sure that we covered that before we ran out of time. So, I mean, I'll give you my very top line view of autonomous networks. And actually, do you know what we should do before we do that? When we're talking about AI, Ian, you had a fun little interaction this week, which I think, if you don't mind, would be fun to bring up.
Okay.
You wrote a story. Let me find it. That's why I had your smiley portrait that I took, so I can get to your stories. You wrote a story which was published yesterday, where it says Verizon CEO emerges as Telecoms AI doomster in chief. And basically what you'd done is you'd found an interview he'd given the Wall Street Journal, and you commented on it.
Yeah.
And you'd had your usual rhetorical flourish while you were doing it, but he did say some stuff, and I'll get you to elaborate in a bit. He did say some stuff that I think really justified your premise, to do with getting.
Well, I noticed when I had my to and fro with the Verizon comms team, they didn't push back after I.
No,
said,
well, so that's
how's it not doomsterism?
That's what I lead up to. I don't want to talk too much because this is about you, not me. But you shared the email thread with me, and I found it very entertaining. And so here we are. I mean, if you don't mind, Ian, do you mind if I start reading out some of the email chain?
Okay, go on then.
I'm not going to. By the way, we're not complete dicks.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name the individual, but this is someone who works for Verizon's crisis comms and reputation management team. And the email is in block capitals: demand for immediate correction. You're misleading. Open quote reporting, close quote, on the Wall Street Journal, blah 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 blah. And we get emails like this every now. Part of the reason I'm bringing it up is partly just because it amused me, but also I think it might be interesting for people to know what it's like to be a journalist sometimes, and to see the to and fro that we have with comms people. Not all comms people, Francesca, I hasten to add. And so. There was the usual, we are profoundly disappointed, the usual sort of passive-aggressive corporate speak stuff. And then they go, we demand that you immediately update the headline and story to accurately reflect Dan Schulman's, and he's the CEO of Verizon, isn't he?
Quite a new CEO, actually. So in from late 2025.
Honest, candid and balanced perspectives, removing your sensationalist and dishonest editorialization. And then they go, if you cannot, we will no longer provide you access to Verizon's official statements, opinions and leaders. So they're doing it. This is a standard thing that you get from comms people, although only from certain parts of the world. I don't know about you. I haven't had
that.
No, I was going to say, I haven't had this too much from European-based comms, whether it's in-house or agency.
No, it is quite
quite American, and then maybe some Chinese company.
I sense they're doing it. I sense they're taking their lead from their great commander-in-chief at the moment, who's a big fan of sort of kicking people out of the White House press room.
You're talking about President Trump.
Yeah, and sort of saying, if you're not going to write nice things about me, then you won't get to come to press conferences anymore.
Yeah, there is a bit of that.
It's not really what journalism's supposed to be about. Apparently, I was told back in journalism class and first day,
no,
you're not really supposed to just write things that the people really like.
So, and then, you gave them a fairly comprehensive reply. About a couple of bits I like. One bit that I thought was pertinent to what you were just saying. You said, Dan Schulman is obviously entitled to his opinions, and I'll stand by mine while there is such a thing as free speech. Well, touche. I'm with you on that, bro. And then there was a funny bit where you obviously were just having a bit of fun with them. You go, perhaps he'll turn out to be right, in which case I might write another story a few years from now, acknowledging his forecast was accurate if I'm not scavenging in dumpsters and fighting off Terminators at the time. But your point was that his remains a doom-laden forecast.
Well, his forecast, because what is it about? He basically did an interview with the Wall Street Journal where he said that he thinks the US rate of unemployment is going to be up to 30% within the next few years.
Yeah,
The world rate of unemployment, I don't think it was limited to the US. He just said there's going to be 30% unemployment in the next few years. AGI is going to arrive by the end of next year.
Interesting.
People are ignoring the advances being made in physical AI, so loads of blue collar jobs are going to go as well. And most bosses aren't like me; they're not being candid enough with their with the general public about all of this, and there needs to be more education about it all. Now, I'm okay. I don't think any of that, to be honest with you, is a view that a lot of people would share. I think it's quite an extreme view of the impact of all of this. So to me, he's very much out on a fringe anyway, in terms of he's very much at the far edge of how far this could go. Yep. And how can you possibly not argue that such a forecast of unemployment rate that would be higher than it was during the Great Depression isn't doomsterism?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will, journalistic standards. I've never been to journalistic school.
Nor have I.
But
can you?
But on the other hand, I will point out that I did write an AI-based white paper on predictions for 2030 with Verizon last year, which was published in December. We didn't have that prediction in there, I will say. It was a very nice piece about going out to survey trees in the Sequoia National Park and how you can basically do things like use your vehicle as a tower with a backhaul over satellite and put up drones to fill in gaps.
It's a more specific remit.
It was a lot more gentle.
Yes.
A lot more gentle. I mean, the thing with that, obviously, there are implications where if 30% of the population are out of work,
it's a bit of a big deal.
There are people who are then financially benefiting from that, and presumably then you have to either cut them out of the loop, or you're going to have to tax them so that those 30% aren't actually scavenging in bins, as you say.
Yes. But Ian's a bit quick to reconcile himself to that. I don't know what that says about him.
I mean, I will say the fact that we're one of the only demos that actually had a robot trying to think in real time, and what we were doing was picking up a box and moving it to the side. I think we might be a few years from general manual labour being replaced by robots.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it won't be, there will be a lot of automation.
That's a direction of travel.
But it's a direction of travel. We're not there yet.
No. But the other problem I had with it was, I mean, they were sort of saying it was lazy that I just kind of picked up and turned it into some sensationalist stuff. I mean, to me, the original WSJ story was quite lazy. It was quite sycophantic because all they'd done is basically listen to what he'd said and written it down. To me, it seemed to me they'd not actually asked him any questions. I mean, we've never had a situation where an economic boom has been associated with mass unemployment, right? Yeah. Like normally, economic booms create jobs,
economic boom,
and then you have consumers to buy your products. If Verizon's suddenly going to face an unemployment rate of 30%, what does it mean for Verizon's own business? It didn't seem like anybody at the WSJ had asked him questions about this. The
thing with AI though is it's incredibly hard to judge, right? Because you think about ChatGPT was launched in November 2022, if memory serves correctly. Yeah. So we're only 3 and a bit years
we're
in.
We're the same distance in, If you go another 3.5 years into the future, that's when Dan Schulman thinks that we're looking at 30% unemployment. What's happened with ChatGPT so far is there's no evidence it's led to any increase in unemployment at all so far. If you look at the US unemployment data, which I did from my story, which they were saying was poorly researched, it's actually at an all-time low, more or less, at the moment.
Well,
it's a 20-year low.
But if you look at it a different way and go, what are the capabilities? I'm not necessarily saying what's happening on the employment market is necessarily true. We could get into that, but let's not. But it's more the capabilities of AI in 3.5 years' time. It's gone from, I can have a plausible conversation 3.5 years ago to, I don't know, do you see all the stuff around mythos?
Yeah.
Now that is concerning.
But I think what they're doing, I think a lot of this, the big tech guys who are behind this like to do this a lot. They like to be scaremongering. You know, they like to create excitement about what they're doing.
It's actually a weird form of publicity
because it creates publicity. It distracts from the fact that most people who are tasked with using AI on a day-to-day basis in their jobs find it's not actually very useful at all. It hallucinates.
Better, though,
you have to check it a lot. It's not really leading to more productivity. There's no connection at all.
One thing I'll say on the mythos thing, though, there were lots of third parties who were looking at this in a very portentous, we've got to get on top of that.
And it's the sixth year in a row we've had a prediction about AGI.
Yeah, mate, I completely get your premise, but I just think it's worth reassessing.
AGI, by the way, which he came out with as something that could be around by the end of next year, I think is a very poorly defined idea anyway. What does AGI mean? He doesn't mean, to me, proper AGI would be Sean Young from Blade Runner or something.
I mean, it's a matter of degrees as well, right? I mean, look, there's almost nobody on Earth that's faster at calculating stuff than a calculator.
Which is, I said that on my story. Like, you could regard that as AGI because it exceeds human ability to do it, or a machine that can beat someone at Go.
I mean, I use AI on a daily basis, many times a day, for researching stuff. I'm sure you guys do too, right? No? I'm just kind of going, hey, give me a bit of a sense of what does this story look like?
I think I use AI because I do think I use AI, even though I haven't gone down.
If you count Gemini search results.
Well, I think even using the internet's using AI because
you are. Totally.
I mean, I personally don't. I don't really like the description AI. I think it's very inaccurate. I don't like it.
So maybe you mean generative.
It's an umbrella term that covers all sorts of things.
Great point.
But I think the stuff that we've seen with generative AI really is just a succession of what we saw with the original search engines. And if you regarded that as AI, someone in 1980, if you said you can type something into a computer and it'll come up with a list of things that you can do and places that you can go to eat out at, they'd go, oh my God, they're that clever by then? That sounds like AI. So what is AI?
That sort of stuff, I think it's useful. But weirdly, it's in the tech sector that I could see quite a lot of jobs being lost. Yeah. This unfortunately is you're looking at, I mean, I use AI for going, hang on, there's this idea, and what happens if I want to get an idea of what is the cutting edge in this? Yeah, and, okay, I've got this thing that I've written, give me a review of it, right? And what bits am I missing? And what have I not thought about? And it's great for going, oh, you've got a gap in this area. And I go, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. So it's really good as a reviewer. And the whole thing with pair programming, for example, it's a fantastic pair programmer, right?
What does that mean?
This is a technique in software engineering where you have two people sit down and they're co-developing code together.
I see.
All right, and one person is writing and the other person watching, and it turns out,
so looking over their shoulder.
It turns out that you end up with better software faster using pair programming than just two individual engineers.
An individual unmonitored could go down blind alleys and
it's that and the number of errors are much less because the other person is actually trying to think about what you're doing.
Yeah, and they're not invested so much.
They're not invested, so they're going, come here, you
so it's
didn't
like
think
a good
about
editor in a lot of ways.
But it's basically writing a piece with a good editor sat on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Real-time editing.
And so AI is excellent at that sort of thing. And so for people like senior engineers, I am not a senior engineer.
You're closer to one than I am, mate.
I used to be one.
Yeah.
But for people who are, senior engineers, architects, that sort of thing, it's amazing as a sort of sense check, and also to be able to do stuff, to actually do stuff that you weren't able to do. So, for example, I built a demo. My coding skills are abysmal, but I built a demo on, a satellite monitoring thing within about an hour and a half with my apps. I'm not being modest. My Python skills are abysmal, but I've managed to just vibe code something together in an hour and a half.
That's the phrase of the
that I would not have been. There's no chance that I'd been able to do it 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Is that going to take work away from people? I'm not sure.
No, I mean, we were getting onto the autonomous networks topic a little bit, but the guys I met at Future Now, because I was asking them exactly this issue, like using it to do code generation.
Yeah.
And so Scott Petty, for instance, was saying it's very useful for doing code generation. Code generation can be quite boring, a lot of the stuff you're doing. So you get it to do some of that kind of basic humdrum stuff. Is it leading to job cuts in his team? No.
Yeah.
Like
it's
someone
just
else
doing more.
Yeah. Jeff at Rakuten was saying you never use it to do code that you're actually selling in customer products, because one thing that happens is you ask it to do it's quite an inefficient writer of code. I guess it's a little bit like, you get it to write a story for you, which I don't do, but some people use it to produce essays, content, and then they edit it. But you can't edit 10 million lines of code or something. And if you're asking it to do quite a big amount of code generation, you don't have the ability to actually go through that then and look at what's been done.
Sometimes it's useful for it to generate something where you go, oh yeah, no, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
And I know what I don't want, and that's what I don't want.
And then you've still got the problem with things like hallucinations and things not going quite right
Big
and going
time.
wrong. If that gets found in a custom
Huge
product,
problem in R&D.
and they come across it and they found out that it was done with like AI use, and you did.
There was a story this week about a law firm, a real like top of the range, pricey New York law firm. They got caught out producing some documentation that had hallucinations in it.
Right.
And so they'd obviously tried some fucking shortcuts, and these people are billing $3,000 an hour and that sort of thing. And it was a big story.
Like, this is why the productivity benefits are quite hard to measure. I think we had from IBM. Owen on from IBM last week talking about productivity benefits, and I think the problem is it's like an internal accounting measure, because you go, we're not putting people on these humdrum tasks. They're actually focused on software design now.
Yeah.
But unless you're still paying them you're still paying salaries, and unless that actually leads to revenue generation, it's very hard to say to an outsider is not going to recognise the financial benefit. The company itself might go from an accounting perspective, like we've realised productivity benefits, but it's...
Well, violently dragging it into the autonomous networks level is stuff.
I was just thinking that. We're running out of time here.
Funnily enough, the TM forum actually have some really, really nice stuff on closed loop control cycles for AI, and how do you basically have a system that is reliable and trustworthy. And in many ways, the AI inside it, you kind of have to assume it's not. So what are the controls you put around it so that you can go, this result is good and this result isn't. And that's a lot of what's driving some of this autonomous network stuff, where you're able to go, okay, I've got these control loops that are acting on particular bits. And one of the ways of thinking about it, rather than a general, this is a genius thing that can do anything, is if you think about microservices architecture in software, this is, I have one little bit of software that does one little thing really, really, really well. Now, instead of that microservice, you have an AI where it's only doing one tiny little thing really well.
Yeah.
And you have it tested, and you have tests around it so that you can figure out that it's probably done the wrong thing or it's probably done the right thing. And then you start stacking them together. And at that point, that's where you start assembling a production system that has AI at the core. But it's not some massive genius AI where you just put in a run my network and the whole thing does it.
There's
hundreds or thousands of tiny little processes. Each one of those processes is very tightly controlled, but it is run by AI.
And that's
at
where
the
you
core.
get the Skynet extrapolation that I'm certainly so inclined to do, is because that dystopian Terminator thing was about something with no guardrails, or at least guardrails that failed.
Guardrails will fail.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the concern, isn't it? That the more, whether it's autonomous networks or whether it's the broader AI stuff that we've been talking about, it's more, obviously you can see the advantage of automating things. You can see the advantage of having something that never sleeps and doesn't need food and is capable of doing certain types of thinking at a much higher level than humans. And I stress certain types because, as we were just talking about with your robots earlier, there's all sorts of stuff that
Well, they're not doing, I hate to say, they're not doing any thinking.
No, I know. I shouldn't have used that word.
I mean,
that's the biggest trigger word for this bloke. Certain types of processing then.
No more than they being in love with you.
Yes,
you might want to think they are, but...
Yeah, well, that's a whole tangent by itself. But certain bits of processing or calculation, or as we get into the agentic stage, decision making. Can I say decision making?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll allow that one.
Then you can just see it's easy to extrapolate it and just think, well, they're gonna take on more and more responsibility, make more and more decisions, and then we need to have obviously the fail safes, the sort of kill switch, but also, as you were just describing, these softer sort of guardrails such that we don't have to use the kill switch because we're on top of it. We're one step ahead of it. We're not letting this artificial intelligence sort of out of the guardrails, out of the cage, out of the sandbox or whatever too much. And so, do you feel that in the context of autonomous networks, and you were just talking about TM4, and I know they're very good on this sort of thing, that this is the sort of thing we're focusing on and we're making good progress on?
Yeah, absolutely. And like an awful lot of it is about data transformation, right? Relatively boring, dull stuff, albeit when it's actually done, you're like, wow, this is amazing. But, oh my God, it's the sort of thing that's presented at a conference where somebody has poured their entire life into it. They're unbelievably smart. They've worked unbelievably hard at it.
You wouldn't necessarily go to the pub with
You go, oh, it's just as well it's you and not me. I'm
well, we need people like that.
I admire you so much for dedicating your life to this, and I'm not, but well done. But this is the thing, it's having good, clean data, because garbage in, garbage out. And it's always been like this for compute systems and, business transformation and billing transformations. God help us. I mean, I think anybody who comes out of a billing transformation who doesn't twitch a little bit at the thought of processing CDRs and all that good stuff. I mean, I've been involved in that stuff and I do not want to be involved in that stuff anymore.
Okay.
I admire the people who can handle it.
We need them.
But jeepers.
This is one of the cool things about collaborating with other human beings. Everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses and interests and all that sort of thing.
But some of that structured stuff, that's what robots and computers are always good at, right? If a computer is good at it, then...
But as you say, garbage in, garbage out, they still got to be given correct instructions.
Correct. And if you try to put all of your customer service over to AI and robots, bonne chance, mon ami.
That's the guy. The guy who's the
annoy people, isn't
CEO of Infovista said during the panel on getting to level 4, which was Ray LeMaitre, our friend Ray LeMaitre was moderating was. This idea of taking people out the workforce to do related to it, it's just not happening because I trust a person sitting next to me more than an agent in the cloud somewhere that can hallucinate and make problems. And there's no evidence, by that, to loop it back to the Verizon stuff, there's no evidence at all.
Just you two, we're going to have to wrap this topic up in a sec.
That any of this has had an impact on telco jobs. Like, I've been tracking jobs in the telco sector now since 2012, and there's been massive cuts over that period. Like, you look at Verizon and AT&T, they're half the size they were then. It's obviously nothing to do with AI. And I think a guy who's just come in and then his first week in charge pretty much said, we're going to cut 13,000 jobs and then cut 10,000 in the last 3 months of the year. So here's me, saying something that the Verizon comms team wouldn't be happy with, but he wants to make out maybe that this is what CEOs like to do these days. They like to make out that they're cutting jobs and link it to something that sounds sexy and exciting, like AI, rather than saying we're actually cutting jobs simply because we're getting rid of bullshit jobs that have been allowed to accumulate.
Then again, when I moved to the UK in 2002 to work for Nokia, there were 20 companies within approximately 20 miles of Reading designing mobile phone handsets.
Right.
Today, I don't think there are any. Bullet have finished up, so I don't think there's any. But
that's not AI.
In 2013, I basically decided to leave that industry.
Yeah.
I went over to 3, basically because there were no more jobs left.
Yeah.
Now, so that sort of industry change happens. It does happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there'll be huge numbers of jobs in the AI industry, and certain percentage of people will move on.
They will.
And so,
but
it's a moribund sector. That's why that's why jobs are being cut.
But Ian's point, I think, sorry mate, to talk over to you to tell you what your point is seems a bit perverse, but I'm going to do it anyway. Is that AI can be used by some people as a pretext for doing job cuts they were maybe going to do anyway. And another thing that backs
the jobs that have been cut in telecom over the last since 2012, which is massive, by the way,
which obviously predates the current AI.
They're to do with spinning off towers, to do with putting more stuff in the cloud, to do with just basically getting rid of mid-level management. By the way, none of it's made any much difference to Verizon's margins, because what it's done, as well as reducing its workforce of full-time employees, is rely a lot more heavily on contractors, which don't show up in the workforce figures.
But maybe it speeds it up. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's one paragraph from someone we've cited on the pod a few times called Richard Windsor of Radio Free Mobile, and he's talking about Meta's numbers, and Meta's announced it's going to cut 8,000 jobs and also not rehire, i.e. cut through redundancy, 6,000 positions. So that's 14,000.
Yeah, but that's not because of AI.
Well, hold on. His first paragraph, he goes, Meta is cutting staff to pay for its AI investments. This is their statement.
Yeah.
Let me finish. But the reality is that this company has had a bloated employee base for years and is using AI as an excuse. Is a good way to avoid a lot of negative press. So the point I'm trying to make is, and unless I got it wrong, I thought this is one of the points you were making about Verizon, is that AI gets brought up in the context of redundancies, but maybe it's a sort of excuse and a form of deflection.
Yeah, when CEOs are cutting jobs, they like to say they're doing it because of some sexy reason, not because basically the business isn't in a very good position and we've lost lost market share. And Richard Windsor, even if you just read out the first part of what he said, which is that they're cutting jobs to invest in AI, that's not a reason. That's not AI cutting those jobs. They're just redirecting spend.
No, that's right. It's just a strategic.
We'll get rid of these people who want probably with nothing to do with AI, and we're not replacing them with AI, but we want to put our money into investing in AI products.
There will be jobs that you don't need as many people for them in the future. That's just a fact, right, of AI. So there will be.
Well, then society's got a huge problem with AI.
I'm not saying that it's going to be societal level, right? But in the same way, right, there aren't that many telephone repair engineers anymore.
Yeah. We talk about this quite a lot.
So there will be changes.
Yeah,
but there'll be more jobs elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I wonder what that will be, because we don't need 10 million prompt engineers, but
we don't know.
You don't know. I know. I agree. I don't know. But.
Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole because we're nearly out of time. I want to say,
can I just take a break?
If you want.
Yeah.
All right. Let me take this opportunity to once more thank the sponsors of this podcast, Cohere Technologies, which is the innovator behind the Universal Spectrum Multiplier software for 4G and 5G, and Pulsone technology for 5G and 6G coexistence, ISAC and NTN. Nice one. All right, we're nearly out of time, so I'm going to move it on. I got one last thing on Verizon having a go at you about that thing, which was they seem to be confused about a distinction between original reporting and opinion. And you were, by definition, journalising Wall Street Journal.
Oh, I'm going to push back on that.
Well, by journalising, I mean...
I don't like the description of churnalising.
Okay, so for people who don't
That's a
understand
pejorative, that.
all right. Also, I can understand where you put. For people who don't understand, in journalism parlance, it's when you re-report. It's when you say FT says this or Bloomberg says that or Wall Street Journal
No, I
says
don't think
the
I was doing that.
No, exactly. Well, I'll retract that.
Journalism is like lazy rehashing of what Reuters and Bloomberg have written without adding any analysis, opinion, or commentary.
For the sake of speed, I'll retract that.
But like if Keir Starmer says something on the
BBC,
BBC,
what I've got to put up with?
And then Rod Little goes, "What an idiot!" in a Spectator piece.
That's not journalism.
Which is what I did with the.
I concede the point. I shouldn't have used that word.
Yeah.
But you were commenting on some other reporting, and they seem to be bothered about your quote editorialising, and I think they slightly misunderstood
But it was editorialising.
That was the whole point of it, and that was my point. If it was just journalism, if it was just you saying Wall Street Journal says geezer from Verizon says this, that and the other, and you were basically just regurgitating what they said, that's one thing. But from the very start, you were commenting on that story and you were giving it your own opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why they got their knickers in such a twist. So anyway, if they listen to this, I think you were barking up the wrong tree.
Well, probably because I was critical of his views.
Well, obviously we understand why they got annoyed, but I think they aimed.
And maybe he even said something himself, judging by the traffic it had.
Did it get a good bit of traffic, that story? Yeah, so maybe it came up on his radar, and so this crisis comms person was just doing their job, and that's fine. That's one of the reasons we don't name them. Everyone's got their job to do, and that's fine. But I just think they were misguided on this. I think you're entitled. Any journalist is entitled to find something that's in the public domain and pass comment on it.
By the way, Dan Shulman's welcome on the podcast at any time to explain
tell us why we're full of shit
AGI and why we're talking crap and he's
Bring
right.
on, Dan.
Yeah, why not?
All right, we've given ourselves very little time, so I'm going to move it on to just one other little news bit. Just like last week, we spoke about Ericsson's quarterlies. This week it was Nokia. What was I going to say there?
I like Nokia. They're a much better company than Nokia.
That's Nokia after 4 beers and some Irish whiskey. They did their quarterlies. Why don't I throw it to you, Ian? Let's keep this as short and sweet as possible. Give us the top line.
I mean, the top line is that the markets were almost sort of ecstatic about the result. If you look at Nokia's share price over the last year, it's doubled, I think.
Yeah.
And they went up 9% on the day. I mean, it's all to do with the optical side of the business, really.
Yeah.
Which is in a good place because.
And explain to our audience, in case it's not totally obvious, what you mean by the optical side. So
it's big fat pipes between data centers,
right.
basically. That's the specific bit that's driving activity for Nokia, because a lot of these AI data center companies, so the hyperscalers, and then other people investing in AI data centers, like someone like Nscale, for instance, are spending a lot of money on Nokia's connectivity products to provide connectivity between those data centers and within those data centers with Ethernet fabric and stuff. So they have a division called Network Infrastructure that has 3 sort of units within it.
Subdivisions, yeah.
3 subdivisions: optical, IP networks, and fixed broadband. And the optical bit is flying. They're kind of a bit flattered at the moment because they bought Infinera last year, and I think
which is the optical bit,
which is
the
optical, which is the other big optical business other than Ciena outside China was Infinera, and they acquired that last year. I think that deal went through in March, so the results still look better because they're still kind of, it's not quite sort of, hasn't got to the stage where second quarter is not going to look quite as good, but I think even on a like for like basis, the growth at the optical business is like 20%. So it's good.
That's exactly what it was.
I mean, they're kind of riding on the coattails of AI demand to some extent, because it's not like what you're seeing at someone like Nvidia, for instance. It's quite modest growth compared with what some of these, some of the guys who are really in the heart of this are seeing. And if you look at the sales growth rate at Nokia overall, it's quite modest. It was like 3%, I think, organic.
Yeah.
Like 4.5 billion euros in revenues, I'm going to say. Roughly, I'm thinking. Yeah. And they're, I think the market's also responded well to the fact that they raised their outlook. So I think they're saying like 2 to 2.5 billion in operating profit, but they've said they're kind of forecasting higher growth at the network infrastructure unit this year than they previously said. I think they were going for sort of 6 to 8% growth rate in January, and then have now increased that to sort of like 12%, maybe
12 to 14,
12
yeah.
to 14%.
Did they say anything around how linked it is to sovereign data center stuff?
Don't remember that. That came up
They
very
didn't
much.
really talk about sovereign a lot. But,
The general pitch I got from it was that the CEO, Justin Hotard, who's been there for a year or two, isn't it?
he's only been there for a year. He took
Yeah.
over in sort of March,
Okay.
I think,
Year
last
or
year.
so.
roughly. March, April.
He was just really keen to focus attention on this optical bit. On this bit that's I think the Infinera acquisition has obviously turned out to be a good one.
Yeah, which he didn't do, by the way.
No, that's true. It does predate him.
I mean, this is the problem with being a CEO, is that there's sometimes the things you do don't get acknowledged. It's like Gavin Patterson, everybody goes, oh, Gavin Patterson, like BT's share price did really badly under him, and he was all about TV. He was the guy who bought EE.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine a BT now without their mobile business?
Yeah.
It's like he led that takeover. So
Infinera's good. But then, I don't know, in a chicken and egg way, maybe they brought in Hotard to capitalise on that.
maybe.
But anyway, I mean, I put at the bottom of my coverage when I wrote it up that when he came along, that I speculated in my writing, based on fuck all other than the fact that he's American and he's from a data center background. My headline was Nokia signals move away from mobile and Europe with new CEO. And it was based on fairly flimsy assumptions just on his background. But I have to say that in the intervening year, with him spending these quarterlies just banging on about fixed interconnects between data centers, that flimsy assumption feels quite vindicated.
Yeah, although they have got the Nvidia investment, and they're saying they're doubling down on AI RAN and all this stuff. I mean, I think the share price movements with Nokia really sort of flatter them at the moment. They're sort of riding on the coattails of this AI stuff, and probably a part of the AI bubble. I think there's massive concern still about that business. Okay. I think optical's doing well, but what's their biggest division? If you look at them as a company that now has 66 units within 2 business groups, the biggest one by far is still what they now call radio networks, which is 35% of sales. And by the way, their profit margin, I think their operating profit margin was 6.2%, which is not very high after having gone through a massive round of cuts. They've cut like 10,000 jobs since late 2023. They've still got about, I mean, that was up till the end of 2025. If you look at what they've been saying, it sounds like there's still another 4,000 jobs to take out this year.
And that's down a little bit year
and that's
year as
mainly
well.
been focused on the mobile business. Now, you look at the mobile business, you look at what they reported in profit. In fact, what they reported in operating profit at group level, and you might have the figures in front of you, but I think it's about 280 million euros. Now, here's the interesting thing. Nokia Technologies, operating profit on a comparable basis, I'm guessing, is about...
Which group are you talking about?
Nokia, the whole of Nokia.
Oh, the whole of Nokia.
Operating profit, I think, comparable on a group level is about 280 million for the quarter. And Nokia Technologies makes, I think in this quarter, made about 380 million euros in revenues. Nokia Technologies is 70% operating margin, or has been. It's like a pure profit. It's basically you sell the IP, and the gross margins of that business have always been pretty much equivalent to all revenues, 100%. 70% operating margin.
Some of the stuff you were doing back in the day, they're still...
They never patented it.
But here's the question. Like, you take that 380 million out and they're not profitable. Yeah. And you take it out of the mobile bit, where I can't remember what the profits were specifically at mobile.
I've got that.
But if you take out that 380 million from, it's more than mobile reported in operating profit, obviously. It implies that the other bits of the mobile group are loss-making.
But the thing, they're in an interesting place from a data center point of view, because the data center stuff is really interesting, especially sovereignty. Because, so obviously you've got the transatlantic divide that's starting to open up quite a bit more. But if you look at network,
gobshites.
There we go. We're going for the Irish version of the
Yeah,
swear.
there's lots of Irish swearing I like.
But if you look at, for example, on the data center side, there's historically not been that many Europeans. But if you want to build yourself an AI data center, it's Americans quite the whole way down. You know, you've got the system integrators and you've got the storage vendors and and this is where if you're really concerned about the sovereignty of what you're building, you need infrastructure suppliers that know their way around network equipment, storage, compute, all that good stuff, right? And this is something that Europe is investing very heavily in. And they're doing it at the upper layers as well. You know, the French with the hilariously named Visio, which is their video calling tool. That's a nice one, a tweaking Microsoft's nose.
Right.
But, you know, when you look then at what's happened in Iran recently, where Iran had a whole load of American network equipment. The reports are it's been backdoored. We don't know. You know, you always have to take these with a
Isn't that all the stuff that Huawei allegedly
and Cisco
used?
and but it's really hard to know whether or not it's just exploiting an unknown 0 day or that sort of thing or a Stuxnet type thing. You don't know. So you have to be careful with assumptions there. But on the other hand, it's who's in your supply chain and who's in your supply chain that you really, 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 really care about.
Yeah.
And your network is part of your supply chain. And that's where, you know, Nokia have a really strong argument when they're selling into governmental organizations.
Yeah, totally. And there's not really any alternatives either.
Not
anyway,
really.
It's not like on fixed broadband, which was actually quite a weak part of the business this time round. They seem to be getting out of some low end, low margin bits of the market. But it's a little bit counterintuitive.
It was down 13% year on year.
It was down 30%, and you got asked about that on the call, and it was like there's some of the CPE stuff they do, the customer premises equipment stuff. They're kind of withdrawing from that and trying to focus on like OLTs and everything. But if you take that to one side, and that market, they're pretty much the only option, other than like much smaller players like Adtran and Calix, other than Chinese companies. In optical, it's only them or Ciena. Now, with the Infinera acquisition, those are your only options. So
and you look at the cost of withdrawing Huawei from the UK market and the RAN side, now put that on fixed equipment that's in the ground, that's...
But there's the concern that even in such a market that only has, like a RAN market that only has two options pretty much now, if you take the Chinese out, okay, let's say Samsung's there a little bit, but they're 5% of the market. Those other two players, which are the bulk of it, where Huawei's not allowed, one of them can't make a profit from selling radio access network equipment. It seems from looking at their results, it's a bit worrying. It says a lot about the state of the sector, unfortunately.
So a couple of other things, and we're gonna have to wrap up in a sec. A couple of other things I took from it. I did a lot of screenshots from I got their presentation, where we've got that bit like you were talking about with their assumption about growth for certain bits. But then just looking at some numbers, and there was one interesting one where they do net sales by region and net sales by customer type. And by region, they're mainly Americas and EMEA. And by that, we can largely assume US and Western Europe, I think. And the only other segment they do is APAC, which is considerably smaller. And then you look at customer type, which is the one that really jumped out at me. Of the 4.5 billion euros.
If it's million, they're really in trouble.
Yeah, I know. I just forgot what I'm talking about here. I just looked at the number. I couldn't remember the denomination or whatever. Anyway, of the 4.5 billion euros, almost 3.3 billion of that is sales into telecommunications providers, as opposed to AI and cloud. And so the interesting thing is, Hotel was talking a lot about how much sales into AI and cloud providers had grown, and they've grown in constant currency 50%. But it's still almost a tenth of what they sell into telecommunications providers. So the interesting thing I took from that is like, okay, you're focusing on this high growth area, fair enough. But Jesus Christ, nearly all of your sales still go into this no-growth area. Sales to telecommunication providers went down 2%.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not surprising.
Because it's a flat market.
No, but it's not surprising that they skew towards they sell comms equipment, yeah? There's hundreds of operators across the world using optical equipment. There's only a few hyperscalers.
Don't forget as well...
It's a growth opportunity, sure, but it's...
Okay.
We're between cycles too.
Yeah.
You know, we're between the 5G and the 6G cycle.
Yeah, I don't think 6G is going to save anybody. I really don't, but...
that might be a different podcast.
It's probably a different...
No telco wants to spend more money on 6G.
Is that,
they've all had enough of doing that.
Everybody's spent a huge amount of money on 5G, and what it is kind of maintenance and upgrades now, right? Yeah.
Which is why they don't want to spend money on 6G.
Yeah, the only reason I flagged that up, obviously, it's not a surprise that they're heavily weighted towards telecommunication providers. I just thought, looking at the rhetoric... I mean... let me quickly
I was just going to say, don't forget the RAN is the biggest thing they do still. And, hyperscalers buy RAN equipment, right?
Well, and that was the other point. So
that's 35% that's only going to be...
Of all their sub-segments, so you were talking about the sub-segments within network infrastructure, which is optical, IP and fixed. And then the sub-segments within mobile infrastructure is core, radio and technology standards. And so of all those 6 sub-segments, radio is by far the biggest. So if we combine those two, radio into telcos is still their biggest segment. And yet he spends most of the time talking about selling
because he knows
optical into
because he knows that the RAN stuff's not going to... That's the growth opportunity.
And that's my point. It just...
And the fixed broadband stuff, by the way, which is quite large as well, is not sold to hyperscalers, obviously. You've got several divisions there that are only ever going to target the hyperscalers. That are only ever going to target the telcos, sorry.
Yeah.
And one big one that targets the hyperscalers, which is optical, which is about 800 million, I think. Revenues. I mean,
that's the point. And we're going to have to... Did you have a last thing you wanted to say, Frank?
I think the problem is, if you want to make money on that, there's only a small number of customers in the world, right? When you look at the sheer number of people you could sell to, RAN equipment to, it's small and it's getting smaller.
Yeah. No, so it's a tough strategic position to be in. But as I think I said, and I'll wrap up if that's all right, Ian, because we're out of time. I said my final sentence in my wrap-up is a Western radio market starved of Chinese vendors needs at least one healthy competitor to Ericsson. So here's hoping some of that AI money gets reinvested into mobile and not just the AI RAN bit. And we haven't really got into that, but they were trying to flag up some of the AI RAN stuff, as you would expect.
AI RAN is synonymous with RAN for them. It doesn't matter what you call it. They want spending on the RAN. They don't have a breakout line for AI RAN. It's still telco spending money on the RAN.
But when they talk about RAN, as you say, it's sort of with that AI RAN.
Yeah, it is, but it's still RAN spending. It's still going to be booked by radio networks, basically.
Because the logic they have is that AI RAN stuff is effectively where their data center and their radio businesses start to merge.
Exactly, and that'll be where we see some of that other stuff, which again might be another part. By the way, Frank, it'd be great to get you back anytime you fancy it.
Sure.
The AI grid and the NVIDIA investment in Nokia and how that all plays out.
We haven't even talked about that.
Exactly. Well, this is what happens on these pods. You go for 2 hours and you realise you haven't covered half the shit that you wanted to. So this is the dilemma we have. But look, I better wrap it up there. Frank, it was a pleasure. Thanks a lot for coming on. And honestly, let's have a look later on in the year. If you think there's some stuff that needs to be revisited, or there's some new, or you've just got a robot that's taking over the world that you want to tell us about.
Bring the robot.
Bottle of Irish whiskey.
Bring the robot.
Yeah, or you bring on. Yeah,
bring the robot. Yeah, why not?
That'd be
great.
great.
You can outdo Owen with the whiskey, although you said before we started that you like Redbreast as well.
That is, I do have a couple of bottles of it at home, yeah,
that's good.
Very nice.
We're getting schooled in Irish whiskey.
Maybe I talk about that bottle of Middleton that we were discussing before.
That special one that gets its own little
in its
case.
Wooden case with its signature,
Cool, well, it's great to meet you, Frank. Thanks a lot for coming on. And I don't know if we've got someone lined up for next week. Let's see. But thanks a lot for listening, and make sure you join us for that one.